Have you ever given a friend just like the most brilliant, life-changing advice, only to turn around and make a complete mess of the exact same problem in your own life? Yeah, we've all been there. And it turns out it's not some personal failing. It's actually a cognitive bias with a 3,000-year-old origin story. So today, we're going to break down why your brain does this, and more importantly, how you can fix it.
This right here, this is the heart of what's known as Solomon's paradox. The basic idea is that when we try to look inward, our own wisdom just seems to pack its bags and leave. It sounds a little harsh, right? But as we're about to see, modern science shows it's disturbingly true. And it all starts with the guy who gives the paradox its name, the biblical King Solomon. He was a figure of legendary wisdom, but also, it turns out, a man of pretty catastrophic personal failure. He was a walking contradiction. I mean, the contrast in Solomon's life is just staggering. On one hand, you've got Solomon the sage. This is the guy who famously solved an impossible dispute between two mothers by threatening to cut a baby in half, a genius move to reveal the real mom. He was a master diplomat, a poet. But then you look at the other side of the coin. There was Solomon the man. He had 700 wives, built shrines to foreign gods for them, and his personal choices, well, they ended up tearing his own kingdom apart. So you have to ask, right? How could the wisest man in the world be such a mess in his personal life? This question puzzled people for centuries, but now it's something psychologists can actually test in a lab. See, this isn't just some old story. It's a deep clue about how our own minds are built. So let's jump forward a few thousand years and see how this ancient paradox holds up under the bright lights of a modern science lab. A couple of researchers, Igor Grossman and Ethan Kross, decided to put Solomon's story to a real, rigorous test. And they gave it its official name, Solomon's paradox. It's this measurable, repeatable tendency that we all have to be more humble, more willing to compromise, and way better at seeing the big picture, but only when the problem isn't ours. Okay, so the experiment they came up with, it was genius and super simple. They brought in people who were in committed relationships. Then they told them to imagine one of two things. Either your own partner is cheating on you, or your best friend's partner is cheating on them. Then they just measured how wisely they thought about it. And the results? Whoa, they were not subtle. When thinking about their friend's problem, people were incredibly wise. They were thoughtful, they considered different perspectives, they knew they didn't have all the answers. But when they faced the exact same problem themselves, their wisdom scores completely tanked. The gap, as you can see here, is absolutely massive. But here's where it gets really, really cool. The researchers didn't just find the problem and stop. They wondered, what if you could overcome this? What if there was a simple mental trick to close that gap? And get this, they ran the experiment again, but this time they gave the group thinking about their own problem one tiny instruction. Think about it from a distanced third-person perspective. And just like that, the wisdom gap completely vanished. People suddenly became just as wise about their own crisis as they were about their friends. And here's the crucial takeaway. The wisdom is already inside of you. You just can't get to it when you're emotionally tangled up in the mess. Okay, so what is happening in our heads that creates this huge blind spot? Why does that one simple shift in perspective have such a powerful, almost magical effect? Well, it all boils down to a concept called psychological distance. Think of it like your mental point of view. When it's a friend's problem, you're standing on top of a hill. You can see the whole landscape clearly, all the roads, all the obstacles. But when the problem is yours, you're not on the hill anymore. You're lost in the middle of the forest, surrounded by trees, and you can't see a path forward because you're just flooded with emotions. This collapse in distance, this being lost in the forest, it triggers what scientists call our hot cognitive system. This is our fast, emotional, gut reaction brain. It's totally focused on the here and now, very reactive. On the flip side, when we think about someone else's problem, we use our cool system. That's the rational, strategic part of our brain, the part that can see the bigger picture. Solomon's paradox is basically our hot system hijacking our ability to reason clearly. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, I'm an expert in my field, so this probably doesn't apply to me. But the research is crystal clear. It absolutely does. Marriage therapists, they get divorced at the same rate as the rest of us. Financial planners, sometimes they go bankrupt. Your expertise in a subject gives you zero immunity from the emotional hijacking of your own problems. If you want a really powerful and honestly tragic modern example of this, look no further than Steve Jobs. Here's a true genius who could literally see the future of technology. Yet when he was diagnosed with a highly treatable form of cancer, his own psychological distance just collapsed. For 9 critical months, he rejected the very medical advice he would have screamed at a friend to take. Instead, he tried alternative treatments. It was a delay that he later told his biographer he deeply, deeply regretted. So if being a genius can't save us, what can? The great news is that the solution is almost laughably simple, and it's incredibly fast. It's all about intentionally creating that psychological distance that your brain struggles to create on its own. That's right, 1 second. Brain imaging studies have shown that just shifting to third-person self-talk can cool down your brain's emotional freakout in as little as 1 second. And you know the best part? It requires almost no willpower. It's like a cheat code for emotional regulation. So here's exactly how you do it. The next time you feel totally overwhelmed by a problem, just pause. Then, instead of asking, "Why am I so upset about this?" use your own name. Ask, "Why is Sarah feeling so anxious about this presentation?" That tiny shift is often all it takes to engage your cool, wise brain. And that third-person trick is just one tool in the toolkit. You can use the friend test. Literally ask yourself, what would I tell my best friend if they came to me with this exact problem? You can try temporal distancing. Ask, how will I feel about this in 10 months or 10 years? You can even journal about your problems in the third person, which has been shown to build wisdom over time. So as we wrap things up here, I think the most powerful insight from all this research is actually a really hopeful one. This isn't about you needing to somehow go out and get more wisdom. That gap between the great advice you give and the sometimes terrible decisions you make, it's not a character flaw. It's not you being a hypocrite. It's a feature of your brain's design. And that's humbling, sure, but it's also incredibly liberating. It means the problem isn't you, it's the situation. And the situation is something you can change with a simple technique, not a complete personality overhaul. And this really gets to the heart of what it means to grow. Long-term studies found something fascinating. Just going through hard times doesn't automatically make you wiser. In fact, if you just stay stuck in your own emotions, it can actually make you less wise. What really matters is the ability to step back and reflect on the experience from a distance. The perspective, that is the teacher. So, the next time you're facing a tough decision, a problem at work, a crisis at home, the very first person you should ask for advice is the wisest, most objective counselor you know, a slightly more distanced version of yourself.